perfect way to explain Men is that it is an A24 film, meaning it has all the things you would expect from the studio. A horror movie with no jump scares, beautifully shot visuals, and an ending that is extremely weird and is overly complicated. The plot of this film follows Harper Mallow, played by Jessie Buckley, a woman who has recently become a widow after the suicide of their abusive husband, James. This event haunts her, and the image of a screaming James falling is burned into her memory. To try and get her mind off these tragic events, she moves to a quaint English village in the countryside. A place she believed would give her peace, but is in fact home to some eldritch horror. Jessie Buckley's performance in this film is really believable and does a great job of visually showing Harper's traumatic experience, because instead of showing her torture with dialogue, they use facial expressions the majority of the time, making her situation feel very human. The scenes that flesh out her relationship with James are done through terrifying flashbacks, showing how abusive James is. In a scene where the married couple have a realistic fight, which is much scarier than any monster could ever be, he threatens to kill himself if they do not stay together. A threat that unfortunately becomes a reality. Rory Kinnear plays a few roles in the film, with the house owner being the first. It can sometimes be hard to understand what they are saying, as a result of them having quite a thick accent. I felt his best performance in the film had to be the vicar, as there are so many subtleties hidden in the performance when we are first introduced, which soon become more pronounced when his true desires are revealed. As I mentioned earlier, it is pretty much expected that A24 films are shot with expertise, and this film is no exception. The scenes in the woods is filled with lush green that is somehow still able to be creepy in context. The tunnel scene, shown prominently in marketing, had great use of silhouettes. Green isn't the only colour used in the film. Some scenes are covered with this terrifying blood red. Sometimes this is created using a sunset, or sometimes car headlights, but always helps to give the film a creepy atmosphere. One thing the film could improve on is the soundtrack. The major gimmick this soundtrack uses is vocals created during the tunnel scene, but when this is mixed with regular instruments such as a guitar, it doesn't sound right, and it is comparable to two songs being played over one another. The other music not using this technique is quite forgettable, consisting of the now cliché horns used in too many A24 soundtracks. I found that this film's ending did not end Harper's arc in a satisfying way, because the main issue she suffers from is not fully fixed. There are some great practical gore effects used in this film towards the end, to the point where when I left the theatre I felt slightly sick, but surprisingly that is a good thing for a horror movie to do. A small nitpick I have with this film is the amount of Apple products used, to the point where no other brands are shown. It reminds me of Sony movies, where everyone uses Sony products for no reason. So if product placement is something that bothers you, it could be something to think about. The film also features some hardcore gory visuals and full frontal nudity. So if that is something that freaks you out, you have been warned. I'm going to speak about the ending now, so if you have not seen the film yet, skip to this timestamp to avoid spoilers. The ending to this film is probably one of the strangest A24 has produced so far. First of all, it starts when a naked man who is previously stalking Harper appears at her door. She then stabs through their arm, and we get an amazingly terrifying scene where the man pulls his hand through the slit where people would put their post, ripping their arm in two in the process. Then, after a scene where she escapes from this man, she runs over the homeowner from earlier in the film. When she checks on him, they steal her car, and after she notices some strange constellations in the sky, the man returns, trying to return the favour and run Harper over. When the car crashes, the weirdest scene I have ever seen in a cinema plays, where a naked pregnant man walks in and gives birth to a nippleless version of Harper, who then gives birth to another character played by Rory Kinnear, who also gives birth. This cycle repeats a few times until finally a blood-covered James emerges from their mouth and finally gets to apologise for hitting Harper earlier in the film. And this is how the film ends. I did notice how Harper gave this creature the same injuries James suffered from the fatal fall earlier, but as for what this all means, I do not have a clue. Perhaps the altar from the church would the strange symbols had something to do with it? Or maybe from the point the naked man blows flowers into Harper's mouth, it becomes a dream sequence? But I still have no idea what it means. In conclusion, despite the confusing ending and disappointing soundtrack, I would give this film a solid 8.5 out of 10. What were your thoughts on this film? Did you understand the ending? If so, leave any thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more reviews of recently released films. If you like this video, you can watch this video where I review a similar film, The Northman.